Iran responds with its own sharp threats. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz has the latest.
U.S. President Donald Trump has escalated his rhetoric against Iran, saying that if the Islamic Republic ever attempts to assassinate him, the United States would respond with such force that Iran would be wiped off the face of the earth. Trump made these comments in a NewsNation interview marking the anniversary of his return to the White House, saying he has given very firm instructions to respond overwhelmingly to such a threat.
Well, they shouldn't be doing it, but I've left notification. Anything ever happens, we're going to blow the whole country is going to get blown up. So we've, originally Biden should have said something, when they made a statement. We always said, why isn't Biden saying anything? Because he didn't. But a president has to defend a president. Like if I were here and they were making that threat to somebody, not even a president, but somebody, like they did with me, I would absolutely hit them so hard. But I have very firm instructions. Anything happens, they're going to wipe them off the face of this earth.
Trump's threat comes after Iran's parliament and military warned against any attack on Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei, saying an assault on him would trigger a declaration of jihad and set fire to the world. At the same time, Iran's foreign minister published an op-ed stating that Iran would fire back with everything they have if struck. He described an all-out confrontation, long and ferocious, with widespread impact. The tensions are backed by a major U.S. military move. The aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln and its strike force are heading west from the South China Sea toward the Middle East. Tracking data is now turned off after the strike group passed the Straits of Malacca, on course to potentially operate in the Arabian Sea and Gulf region. Based on current speeds, it could be within striking distance of Iran by this weekend, giving Washington options far beyond diplomacy. The carrier, along with its destroyers and aircraft, provide the U.S. with capabilities from precision airstrikes and long-range missiles to surveillance and a powerful deterrent presence. Additionally, U.S. Air Force assets have been redeployed from Gulf states to Jordan, positioning it as CENTCOM's primary forward base against Iran. There is no confirmed strike order, but U.S. officials say all options remain on the table as Washington, Jerusalem, and regional allies monitor the situation closely. As the standoff develops, both sides continue to signal readiness for escalation, and the next few days could be critical.
And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has accepted President Donald Trump's invitation to join the new Board of Peace, an international initiative that would begin with Gaza and could potentially expand to other global conflicts. The move comes as the U.S. prepares for a signing in Davos, Switzerland. ILTV's India Naftali has the details. India?
Thank you, Sivan. Netanyahu is joining a small but growing group of world leaders who have agreed to take part in this U.S.-led initiative. But behind the scenes, there's still uncertainty about who will ultimately participate, how much authority the board will actually have, and whether it could complement existing international institutions like the UN or compete with them.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has formally accepted U.S. President Donald Trump's invitation to join the newly created Board of Peace, according to a statement from his office. The board is a U.S.-led initiative designed to handle international conflict resolution, beginning with the Gaza Strip, and is set to be chaired by President Trump for life. Countries that have accepted the invitation include Argentina, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Hungary, Kazakhstan, Morocco, the United Arab Emirates, and Vietnam. The move comes as the White House prepares for a formal signing ceremony to launch the board, scheduled for Thursday in Davos, Switzerland during the World Economic Forum. According to an invitation confirmed by U.S. officials, world leaders have been asked to attend and sign the board's charter as Washington seeks to accelerate the second phase of its Gaza ceasefire plan. However, only a handful of countries have confirmed that their heads of state will participate, amid a growing unease over what some diplomats describe as an attempt to create an alternative to the United Nations. That concern was addressed by President Trump himself when asked whether his board could replace the UN.
Do you want your Board of Peace to replace the UN?
Well, it might. I mean, the UN just hasn't been very helpful. I'm a big fan of the UN potential, but it has never lived up to its potential. The UN should have settled every one of the wars that I settled. I never went to them. I never even thought to go to them. They should be able to settle those wars. They don't. I believe You got to let the UN continue because the potential is so great.
Diplomats in Europe and the United Nations have warned that the new board could weaken existing international mechanisms and create competing authority over global conflict management.
With the signing ceremony happening tomorrow, the Board of Peace is moving from an idea into a real-world diplomatic body. Whether it ends up working with existing institutions like the United Nations or operating as a separate framework for Gaza's next phase remains unclear, and it's certainly raising questions about how the two would coexist. Sivan?
Thank you, India. At a moment of rising tension between Washington and Iran and unprecedented rhetoric exchanged between the two, we're now joined by Professor Chuck Freilich, former Deputy National Security Advisor in Israel and professor at Tel Aviv and Columbia Universities, to help us understand what comes next. Thank you for joining.
My pleasure.
So Iran warned that any move against Supreme Leader Khamenei would trigger an all-out religious jihadi war. How serious should Israel and the U.S. take that threat, do you think?
Well, I would take it quite seriously. I would take the potential Iranian responses to whatever action the U.S. may take quite seriously. Even if the U.S. launches a truly massive attack, and it's not yet clear that that will be the case, the president seems to be talking about a decisive blow. But regardless of what the U.S. really does in the end, Iran still has considerable capabilities for retaliation, whether it's against American forces in the Gulf, and they're right next to Iran, certainly against Israel. And as a matter of fact, Iran has various capabilities, sleeping cells, Hezbollah cells around the world. So, yeah, they have the capability to respond not insignificantly. And at the same time, by the way, let's not allow ourselves to be overly deterred by what they say, because in the end, the difference in overall capability here, especially if the U.S. is involved, is overwhelming.
So Trump, too, used very strong rhetoric. He said that Iran would be wiped off the face of the earth if they target him or any of the leaders. Do you think that following these exchanges between the two countries and leaders, do you believe a U.S. strike is still on the table, or is this primarily psychological warfare?
Well, I think we can probably agree that President Trump is occasionally given to the bit of hyperbole. And there isn't always a direct link between what he says and what he does, but there is sometimes. And he may have backed himself into a position, I don't want to even say a corner, but placed himself in a position where at this point he has to do something significant, first of all, because he promised it, and it would be a major disappointment, even a disgrace for him not to back up his commitment to the Iranian people, but also because there will soon be 2 American aircraft carriers, in addition to all sorts of other capabilities in the region. So you have to ask yourself, what would the U.S. be concentrating such a massive capability for if it did not intend to do it, to do something? I think the real question here is the nature of the response, rather than whether there will be some response. And speaking now from the Israeli perspective, if the response is just some sort of limited one, which does not, let's say, at a bare minimum, significantly downgrade Iran's capabilities further, hitting the nuclear program some more, hitting their ballistic missile program, hopefully a lot more, then it's not clear that this whole thing is worth doing. And I don't know that anyone has an idea how you use air power to bring down a deeply entrenched regime like the Iranian.
Now, from Israel's perspective, is this a moment of opportunity? Is Israel hoping the U.S. would in fact strike? What would be the better outcome for Israel?
Well, I think it would be something like the days of the Mashiach, Yemot HaMashiach, if the Iranian regime could be toppled. Now, that's something that Israel, and much of the world, but certainly above and all, Israel has been dreaming of ever since the Islamic Republic was established, for the regime to crumble and to have a new Iranian regime, which hopefully we could go back to being on very good terms with, like we were with the Shah. So the hope is there. But again, the question is, there's a fundamental question that the U.S. has to ask itself and Israel has to ask itself. What are we trying to achieve here? Is the objective really to topple the regime? And again, I don't know how you do that just through air power. If the U.S. was even contemplating a major ground invasion, that would be one thing, but it isn't. So then what is the objective? Just to punish them? Okay, been done in the past, we can do it again, but there will be a price to pay for it, a significant price. So is it worth it? Yes, if it's a major operation. No, if it's a limited one. Is the real objective actually to downgrade the missile and nuclear program? What do we want, regime change or just to hit their military capability?
Mm-hmm. What do we want is the question. Chuck Freilich, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we've got some exciting news. You can now get Israel updates on our WhatsApp channel. Breaking stories, live updates, and verified reports, all delivered fast and accurate. Just scan the QR code on your screen to join.
Imagine earning your master's degree on top of Mount Carmel, where forest meets sea and where every day brings a new cultural, academic, and personal adventure. This is the multi-experience at U Haifa International. Here, students from around the world live and learn together in Israel's most culturally diverse city, meeting new people, discovering new perspectives, and shaping their own Israel experience.
There's people from different countries, from different religions and different languages. Somehow we are all very similar.
At U Haifa, academics meet real life. You don't just study, you experience Israel up close, explore Haifa's mountain ocean city life, and build global friendships that last a lifetime.
It's not just a degree, it's an experience. It opens your mind, your network, and your world.
U Haifa International. Master your mind, live your Israel experience.
Israel has begun demolishing the UNRWA headquarters in East Jerusalem, a move the United Nations is condemning, but Israel defends as lawful and long overdue. ILTV's Mayan Hoffman reports.
Israel on Tuesday began demolishing the East Jerusalem headquarters of UNRWA, sending bulldozers into the compound in the early morning hours and tearing down several buildings that once housed dozens of agency staff. The move follows years of escalating Israeli action against the organization, which Israel accuses of deep ties to Hamas and perpetuating the conflict by maintaining refugee status across generations. In late October 2024, the Knesset passed legislation banning UNRWA from operating on Israeli territory, citing security concerns and evidence linking agency employees to terror activity. Despite those laws, some UNRWA operations in East Jerusalem had continued in a limited capacity. Israeli officials say the headquarters itself had already been vacated and no longer qualified as a protected UN site. The United Nations sharply condemned the demolition, with Secretary General Antonio Guterres calling on Israel to halt the operation and restore the compound. Speaking to reporters, a UN spokesperson framed the move as an attack on the organization itself.
UNRWA facilities are United Nations facilities. An attack on UNRWA is an attack on the United Nations.
Israel's foreign ministry rejected that claim, stating that UNRWA had already ceased operations at the site and that the compound did not enjoy immunity. The ministry said the seizure and demolition were carried out in accordance with Israeli and international law. National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir arrived at the scene as demolition began, calling it an important day for sovereignty in Jerusalem, and vowing similar action against what he described as terror supporters. Israel has intensified scrutiny of UNRWA since the October 7, 2023 Hamas massacre, after evidence emerged that agency employees participated in the attack. Israeli officials say more than 10% of UNRWA staff in Gaza have documented ties to terror groups, and that agency schools routinely incite hatred and glorify violence. The IDF has also revealed a Hamas data center beneath UNRWA's Gaza headquarters, and says it has repeatedly targeted Hamas operatives using UNRWA facilities as cover. Freed hostages have testified that they were held in UNRWA schools and buildings during captivity. UNRWA supporters argue the agency provides essential humanitarian services and warn that dismantling it could worsen instability. Israel counters that no humanitarian role justifies cooperation with terror, and that aid must be delivered through alternative, accountable frameworks.
The story of the Jewish people has never been about standing still. It's a story of moving forward, of taking responsibility, of protecting what matters, no matter the challenge. That story is still being written today, not with swords, but with stewardship of the land, with the rule of law, and with the determination to secure Israel's future. And on the front lines of that mission stands Regavim. Regavim is a public movement dedicated to defending Israel's national lands and natural resources in the field, in the courts, and in the public square. Through research, on-the-ground action, and legal advocacy, Regavim works to uphold the rule of law and to ensure that Israel can grow, thrive, and remain rooted in its homeland.
Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz praised the strong and growing security alliance between Israel and Greece. Speaking Tuesday at a joint press conference with Greek Defense Minister Nikos Dendias in Athens, Katz said operational cooperation between the two countries is expanding and described joint military exercises as a force multiplier that strengthens the security systems of both Israel and Greece. Dendias confirmed the two sides will cooperate on anti-drone technology and cybersecurity, including sharing know-how to counter drone swarms and unmanned undersea vehicles. Last year, Greece approved the purchase of 36 Israeli-made pulse rockets artillery systems worth about 650 million euros, and is also in talks with Israel on a multi-layer air, missile, and drone defense system estimated at 3 billion euros. While no threats were named, both countries view Turkey as a key regional security challenge.
Μελετήσαμε το Ισραηλινό μοντέλο και επί τη βάση αυτού δημιουργήσαμε το Ελληνικό Κέντρο Αμυντικής Καινοτομίας. Στόχος μας είναι η Ελλάδα από μια χώρα πελάτης και αγοραστής μόνο αμυντικών συστημάτων να γίνει μια χώρα συμπαραγωγός, παραγωγός καινοτόμων προϊόντων χαμηλού σχετικά κόστους και διπλής χρήσης.
כחלק בלתי נפרד מהשותפות הזאת, אנו חולקים מידע רלוונטי, מקדמים שיתוף פעולה ביטחוני, טכנולוגי, מקיימים תרגילים ואימונים משותפים ומחזקים את שיתוף הפעולה המבצעי, וכל אלה מהווים מכפיל כוח משמעותי למערכות הביטחון, הן בישראל והן ביוון. בד בבד אנחנו נחושים גם בסוגיה קריטית נוספת, לא לאפשר לגורמים המבקשים לערער את היציבות האזורית לבסס דריסת רגל באמצעות טרור, תוקפנות או שלוחות צבאיות בסוריה, בעזה, בים האגאי או בכל זירה אחרת לממש את שאיפותיהם המסוכנות.
The High Court of Justice has ruled an autopsy would not be performed on the two infants who died this week at an unlicensed, overcrowded daycare in Jerusalem. The court overturned a lower court decision that had approved postmortems, ruling that invasive autopsies are unnecessary if other medical tests can confirm the cause of death. The decision allowed 4-month-old Leah Goloventic and 6-month-old Aaron Katz to be buried without further delay. The families, who are ultra-Orthodox, opposed autopsies on religious grounds. Strict interpretation of Jewish law generally prohibits autopsies, viewing the human body as sacred and calling for quick burial, unless the procedure can clearly save another life. Police believe the babies died from heat exhaustion and dehydration, possibly due to a malfunctioning heating system in a sealed room. Meanwhile, 2 caregivers from the daycare remain in custody, with police investigating possible reckless homicide and criminal negligence in one of Jerusalem's most shocking childcare tragedies in years. U.S. President Donald Trump said his administration may have reached a deal with Harvard University. Trump cites anti-Semitism at the prestigious Ivy League school. The administration has threatened to withhold federal funding from universities over campus anti-Israel protests and policies related to diversity, climate initiatives, and transgender issues, drawing concern from civil rights groups.
Secured unprecedented settlements with Brown University, Columbia University, and many other colleges, including the University of Pennsylvania, where I went, the great old Wharton School of Finance. To restore fairness and merit, we're working with Harvard right now. They've been very anti-Semitic. Terrible what they've done. And we'll see what happens. I hear we have a deal, but who the hell knows with them? They have a lawyer that wants to show how hot he is.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu congratulated U.S. President Donald Trump on marking 1 year since returning to office for his second term. In a post on the official Prime Minister's X account, Netanyahu called it an incredible first year of a second term, offering congratulations to both President Trump and the United States. The two leaders have maintained close ties, meeting face-to-face 6 times since Trump began his second term, most recently just weeks ago in Florida.
From the Golan Heights to Gaza, you've proven time and again what I've said many times.
We've never had a friend, even close, a friend, as President Trump in the White House. So I think we have a partnership, if I can quote you, second to none. I think it's allowed us to do enormous things.
While you focus at home on making America great again, your leadership abroad is changing the world for the better, ending wars and advancing peace.
I think what President Trump has done in a very short time is bring America back to the front seat, to the driver's seat in world affairs, and that's very, very important.
I think he's been extraordinary in his friendship and his support for Israel, his principled positions, his willingness to just cut through and get to the essence of things.
Israel with other people might not exist right now, if you want to know the truth.
The coordination between an American president and an Israeli prime minister has been unmatched. It offers great promise for Israel, for America, for our region, and for the world.
We're with you, and we'll continue to be with you, and a lot of good things are happening.
Thank you for your friendship.
Thank you very much, baby.
And thank you for your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Now let's. Growing tensions between the United States and Iran are on full display at the moment, just days from when a U.S. aircraft carrier group arrives at a striking distance of Iran. President Donald Trump has issued his toughest warning yet, while Tehran responds with its own sharp threats. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz has the latest.
U.S. President Donald Trump has escalated his rhetoric against Iran, saying that if the Islamic Republic ever attempts to assassinate him, the United States would respond